Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what went down between Katt Williams and Wanda Smith wasn't just comedy, it was cultural demolition. Forget celebrity slap fights, forget reality TV tantrums. This moment was so brutal, it made the Will Smith Oscars slap look like a polite handshake. Katt Williams didn't just roast Wanda Smith, he turned her career into barbecue charcoal, and now, years later, Dave Chappelle has stepped in, peeling back the curtain and exposing the real story behind the most savage takedown in comedy history. This wasn't light banter, this was a verbal hit job. Katt torched Wanda so bad, people swore the radio station turned into a crime scene. And when the smoke cleared, careers shifted, egos shattered, and the internet crowned a new king of destruction. But here's the twist nobody saw coming: Dave Chappelle, the man who sees through chaos like it's written in subtitles. He didn't just laugh at the carnage. He revealed secrets, motives, and behind-the-scenes chaos that flipped the whole story upside down. Grab your popcorn, silence your phones, and prepare your jaws because the truth about Katt vs. Wanda is wilder than anything Netflix could script. It all started like just another radio interview. Wanda Smith, the Atlanta radio host known for her quick wit and larger-than-life personality, thought she was about to have a normal morning with comedian Katt Williams in the studio. Maybe some playful back and forth, maybe a few jokes about hair or relationships, the usual banter that gets listeners laughing on their way to work. But what she didn't realize, she wasn't sitting across from a guest. She was sitting across from a verbal executioner. Katt Williams doesn't roast people, he dismantles them. He studies your weaknesses like a surgeon, then slices through them with one-liners so sharp they could cut steel. And when Wanda Smith made the mistake of poking at Katt, teasing him about cooking at home and throwing shade at his messy reputation, she unknowingly loaded the gun and handed it to him. The moment she joked, "Do you even cook for your kids?" the interview turned into a massacre. Katt's eyes lit up like a man who'd just been given permission to unleash hell. What followed wasn't comedy. It was destruction on live radio. He came for her career, her cooking, her looks, her wig, her marriage. Nothing was safe. Line after line, insult after insult. Katt buried Wanda deeper into her chair while the studio staff gasped, laughed nervously, and prayed the cameras wouldn't capture their faces. At one point, Katt said her wig looked like it was sponsored by the Salvation Army Lost and Found. Another shot claimed her cooking was so bad, her kids hired Uber Eats as foster parents. It was savage, brutal, and unforgettable. By the time Wanda tried to clap back, it was too late. Every comeback she attempted was bulldozed by another punchline from Katt. The internet later described it as watching someone bring a butter knife to a gunfight. Within minutes, Wanda went from host to hostage, and the fallout? Immediate. Listeners called into the station in shock. Clips were uploaded online faster than you could say viral. Twitter exploded with hashtags like #KattCookedWanda and #RadioRoastOfTheCentury. Memes popped up showing Katt holding a flamethrower while Wanda melted in the background. Fans declared it the greatest comedy assassination since the Comedy Central roast of Flavor Flav. But here's where it got even crazier. The story didn't stay in the studio. Wanda's husband, clearly furious over the public humiliation, allegedly confronted Katt outside a comedy club days later. Reports swirled that things got heated, almost physical. Suddenly, the roast wasn't just internet entertainment, it was a real-life feud spilling into the streets of Atlanta. Headlines screamed, "Radio roast turns into real-life drama." The comedy community, eating it up like Thanksgiving dinner, and Dave Chappelle? He watched from the sidelines, shaking his head. Because while fans laughed at Katt's savagery, Dave saw something deeper. He later revealed in conversations that the Wanda incident wasn't just a funny moment, it was a perfect storm of ego, culture, and comedy politics. To him, it symbolized how fragile reputations are. How one bad day at the Mick can turn decades of work into a viral humiliation reel. But before we get to Dave's revelations, let's lock in on that viral moment itself because it became a legend. Fans uploaded clips with dramatic movie trailers. In a world where radio hosts play with fire, only one comedian walks away. TikTok reenactments popped up, with creators wearing wigs and mimicking Wanda while others delivered Katt's lines with exaggerated swagger. Even other comedians chimed in, some praising Katt for staying true to his roast-heavy brand, others criticizing him for going too far on a host who wasn't prepared for battle. Steve Harvey, who'd seen his share of on-air clashes, allegedly told colleagues, "That wasn't an interview. That was a funeral service with jokes." Ricky Smiley, another radio legend, admitted on air that if Katt came at him like that, he'd have unplugged the mic and ended the show immediately. Everyone had an opinion, and every opinion kept the scandal alive. For Wanda, though, it was no laughing matter. Her face during the roast told the story. Forced smiles, awkward laughs, eyes darting for backup. In the aftermath, she spoke about how the incident spiraled out of control, how she never expected Katt to go that hard. But by then, it didn't matter. The internet had already decided. Wanda lost the battle, Katt won the war, and yet here's the twist: Katt didn't walk away unscathed either. Yes, fans hailed him as the king of savage roasts, but critics argued he crossed the line. Some said he used his platform to bully a radio host instead of keeping it playful. Others argued that his meltdown was less about humor and more about anger issues spilling out in public. Memes may have crowned him the victor, but behind the curtain, the controversy added another messy chapter to his long list of public scandals. Still, the power of that viral moment couldn't be denied. It cemented itself in comedy history. For younger fans, it became their first introduction to Katt Williams' no-holds-barred style. For older fans, it was a reminder that Katt wasn't just a stand-up, he was a gladiator of insults, someone who could turn words into weapons sharper than any sword, and lurking behind it all, Dave Chappelle, the man who always finds the hidden truth beneath the noise. Years later, when Dave finally addressed the Wanda incident, he didn't just laugh it off. He exposed what really went down, the behind-the-scenes chaos nobody saw, and the industry politics that turned one roast into a cultural phenomenon, because in Dave's eyes, this wasn't just Katt vs. Wanda, this was comedy vs. ego, this was career vs. culture. This was a warning that in today's world, one viral clip can rewrite your entire legacy overnight, and that's exactly what happened. If the Wanda Smith roast was the bomb, the escalation was the mushroom cloud. The internet didn't just laugh and move on, it obsessed, dissected, and immortalized the moment like it was the Zapruder film of comedy. People weren't asking, "Did you see that roast?" anymore. They were asking, "Where were you when Katt Williams obliterated Wanda Smith?" The memes hit overdrive. Katt's face, mid-roast, became a reaction image for everything. Got bad food at a restaurant? Post Katt's smirk with the caption, "This chicken tastes like Wanda cooked it. Someone lied about their resume?" Drop a clip of Katt saying, "You don't even cook for your kids." Wanda's forced laugh became a meme too, used to mock fake support everywhere from office meetings to family reunions. But the internet being the internet, it didn't stop at jokes. It created a civil war. Hashtag Team Katt vs. Hashtag Team Wanda. Katt's fans praised him for keeping it real, exposing fake confidence, and proving nobody should step in the ring with a verbal assassin unless they're ready to lose. Wanda's defenders argued she was ambushed, that the power dynamic was unfair, and that Katt crossed lines that made the joke feel more like bullying. And then Dave Chappelle stepped into the chat. Unlike everyone else, Dave didn't rush to Twitter or Instagram. He didn't drop memes. He waited. And when he finally spoke about it, he made it count. In a private conversation that later leaked and then in on-stage riffs, Dave made it clear, what happened that day wasn't just about comedy. It was about power, ego, and the razor-thin line between funny and foul. Dave said Katt's destruction of Wanda was like watching Mike Tyson fight a rookie boxer at a county fair. It was over before it started. Dave joked. That wasn't a match. That was a mauling. But then he got serious. People think Katt won, but did he? Because in comedy, the moment you stop being playful and start being mean, you've lost something bigger than the laugh. Those words flipped the discourse. Fans who cheered for Katt's savagery had to rethink it. Was it funny because it was skillful, or was it uncomfortable because it was cruel? Dave wasn't defending Wanda, but he was exposing the messy truth. Comedy thrives on balance. And balance was nowhere in that studio. Of course, Dave's analysis didn't end the debate, it supercharged it. Podcasts, blogs, and YouTubers dissected his comments like scripture. Some praised him for cutting through the noise. Others accused him of being too soft on Wanda or too harsh on Katt. But either way, the conversation shifted. The roast was no longer just viral content. It was a cultural debate about comedy itself. Celebrities chimed in too, because Hollywood can't resist drama. Tiffany Haddish praised Wanda for holding her ground even when it was tough. Kevin Hart, who had his own history of clashes with Katt, slyly tweeted, "Sometimes you win the battle and lose the war." Fans instantly took that as a shot at Katt. Ricky Smiley called it radio history but admitted even he felt secondhand embarrassment listening to it. And let's not forget 50 Cent. You know he couldn't stay quiet. He posted a meme of Wanda with the caption, "She wasn't ready." The comments section? Explosive. Some fans laughed along, others accused him of kicking Wanda while she was down. But that's 50 if there's smoke. He's selling gasoline by the gallon. The escalation also reached Wanda's husband again. Rumors circulated about how angry he still was, with insiders whispering that the near confrontation at the comedy club could have ended way worse. Fans speculated endlessly. Was this just a roast gone wrong, or had Katt crossed into dangerous territory? The fact that it even left the studio and bled into the streets made it legendary and terrifying. Meanwhile, the memes weren't just staying on Twitter. TikTok creators turned the roast into a trend. One side would play Wanda, trying to clap back, while the other side played Katt, shutting it down with savage comebacks. The hashtag #KattTVSwanda racked up millions of views. Even teenagers who weren't old enough to remember the original interview were suddenly quoting it word for word. And here's the kicker. Schools, workplaces, and even churches used the roast as cautionary tales. Teachers showed clips to warn students about choosing battles wisely. Preachers quoted it in sermons about controlling your tongue. HR managers used it during conflict resolution seminars. What should have been just another radio blooper became a cultural parable. Don't poke the bear if the bear has a mick. Dave, meanwhile, doubled down. In later shows, he compared the roast to a gladiator fight. "People love blood," he said, "but they forget the gladiators were slaves." He wasn't calling Katt or Wanda slaves, but he was pointing out the ugly truth. Fans cheer destruction, not realizing the human cost for the people in the ring. It was a mic drop observation that reframed the whole scandal. The public, though, it wasn't ready to let go of the jokes. One meme showed Wanda's wig flying off into space with Elon Musk's rocket. Another had Katt holding a frying pan with the caption, "This is how Wanda's cooking career ended." Even serious debates about comedy and cruelty were drowned out by the sheer flood of humor. But that was the point Dave tried to make. In the internet age, the line between humiliation and entertainment doesn't exist anymore. Wanda may have lost the roast, but the bigger loss was how the internet turned her pain into a punchline forever. And Katt? Sure, he won in the moment, but his legacy became further tied to being the guy who goes too far, who turns interviews into crime scenes. By the end of the escalation, the roast wasn't just a clip. It was a cultural landmark. Team Katt declared it proof of his genius. Team Wanda declared it proof of comedy cruelty. And Dave Chappelle stood above them all, not picking sides, but reminding everyone that the truth was uglier, funnier, and more complicated than the internet ever wanted to admit. By the time the dust settled, the Wanda Smith roast wasn't just a viral clip anymore, it had become folklore. People weren't talking about it like that one time on the radio, they were talking about it like a historic event. And the aftermath showed just how deep the scars went, not only for Wanda, but for Katt, Dave, and comedy culture as a whole. Let's start with Wanda. Before that fateful morning, she was respected, loved in Atlanta, and a staple voice for her listeners. After the roast, she was forever branded as the woman Katt Williams destroyed live on air. Every interview she did afterward, every public appearance, every gig, it all circled back to that moment. Fans didn't ask about her show. They asked, "How do you feel about Katt cooking you like that?" Imagine building a career only to have it boiled down to a meme. Wanda didn't just lose the roast. She lost control of her narrative, and the humiliation didn't stay digital. At comedy clubs, audiences heckled her name as shorthand for easy target. Younger comics whispered about her behind the scenes, treating her like a cautionary tale. Don't get Wanda'd, she wasn't just Wanda Smith anymore. She was Wanda the roast victim, and that's a brand no one wants. Now, Katt Williams. On the surface, he walked away the winner. His reputation for savagery skyrocketed. Fans called him the Mike Tyson of comedy roasts. Clips of him frying Wanda circulated worldwide, reintroducing him to an entire generation of fans who only knew him from Friday After Next or his wild stand-up specials. But beneath the applause was a quieter backlash. Critics called him cruel, a bully, someone who didn't know when to pull back. Even some of his peers said privately that Katt had gone too far, that the Wanda incident was less comedy and more humiliation disguised as jokes. For Katt, every victory came with baggage. Yes, he was back in the spotlight, but once again, it was for controversy instead of artistry. His legacy as one of the funniest men alive became entangled with the idea that he was also one of the meanest. And then Dave Chappelle. Unlike Wanda or Katt, Dave didn't participate in the moment. He observed, analyzed, and years later, exposed what really happened. He reframed the roast not as a win or loss, but as a turning point for comedy itself. In Dave's eyes, the Wanda incident revealed just how fragile careers had become in the viral era. One wrong move, one bad clapback, one humiliating moment, and suddenly, decades of work could be reduced to a trending hashtag. Dave also exposed the bigger truth. The audience doesn't care who gets hurt, as long as they're entertained. People laughed, Dave said in one riff, but did they notice Wanda's face? Did they hear her voice crack? That wasn't a joke anymore, that was a person. Breaking on live radio, it was the kind of perspective only Chappelle could give, cutting through the noise to remind everyone that comedy is both an art and a blood sport. The public reaction after Dave's analysis? Divided as ever. Some praised him for pulling the curtain back, for daring to point out the cruelty behind the laughs. Others rolled their eyes, saying Wanda knew what she signed up for and that comedy is supposed to be brutal. The internet wasn't interested in nuance, it wanted sides, teams, hashtags. And so the cultural divide hardened. Katt as the savage genius, Wanda as the tragic victim, and Dave as the philosopher who refused to let anyone pretend it was simple. The real consequences, though, lived in careers. Wanda's visibility shrank. Katt's reputation as a loose cannon grew. And Dave? He walked away untouchable, his commentary elevating him yet again as the man who sees the bigger picture, than when everyone else is blinded by memes. But the story didn't end there. Because the Wanda incident became a blueprint for every public clash afterward. When Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, people immediately compared it to Katt vs. Wanda. When Monique dragged Oprah and Tyler Perry, the same parallels surfaced. When comedians sparred with hosts, bloggers, or each other, Wanda's roast resurfaced as exhibit A of how quickly things can spiral. And here's the real twist. The Wanda moment outlived itself. Even people who never watched the original clip still know the shorthand. Don't get Wanda'd became slang for getting embarrassed beyond repair. It's not just a moment in comedy history anymore, it's part of the culture's vocabulary. That's legacy, whether you like it or not. So what's the cliffhanger? Simple. If one roast could alter careers, divide fans, spark memes, and inspire cultural debates for years, what happens the next time a comedian goes nuclear in real time? The Wanda incident proved that the internet will immortalize humiliation. Dave's analysis proved that every joke has consequences. And Katt's legacy proved that being the funniest man in the room might also make you the scariest. Comedy has always been dangerous, but in the viral era, it's lethal. One clip can make you a legend, or ruin you forever. Wanda Smith learned that the hard way. Katt Williams reminded us with fire. And Dave Chappelle, he revealed the truth that nobody wanted to face. Comedy doesn't just entertain, it destroys, exposes, and rewrites legacies in ways you can never predict, and the scariest part, the next Wanda moment is coming. We just don't know who's sitting in the hot seat yet, and there you have it, the roast that became a revolution. Katt Williams didn't just clown Wanda Smith. He rewrote the rulebook on what happens when you underestimate a comedian armed with a microphone and zero mercy. Wanda thought she was hosting a radio interview, but she ended up starring in the internet's longest-running comedy funeral. And when the smoke cleared, Dave Chappelle slid in, not to laugh, but to expose the uncomfortable truth behind the laughs that comedy isn't just entertainment, it's survival of the funniest. But now the mic is in your hands. Was Katt the savage genius proving nobody should step into the lion's den without armor, or was he a bully who turned banter into brutality? Did Wanda lose because she wasn't ready, or did the internet just decide her fate before she had a chance to fight back? And Dave Chappelle, philosopher, prophet, truth teller, did he elevate the moment or just remind us that sometimes laughter hides pain? Drop your verdict in the comments, because this court of public opinion never adjourns, and don't forget to pay your rent for this chaos. Smash that like button like Katt smashed Wanda's confidence. Subscribe harder than the internet. Subscribe to the hashtag #KattTVSwanda memes, and hit that notification bell like it owes you money. Because tomorrow, another scandal, another career on the chopping block, another comedian turning life into demolition. And when it happens, you know Fame Ripple will be right here, serving it raw, savage, and hotter than a Chappelle punchline. This is Fame Ripple, where comedy doesn't just entertain, it exposes.